Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Quarantine Diaries. This time I am with Molly. And before I say anything about Molly, just take a few moments and introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, what grade you're in, where you go to school, etc.
Hi, I'm Molly, and I am a senior at Wando High School. And as you'll probably know, school was canceled for the rest of the year there, like physically, but I'm doing online school. And next year I plan to go to college, but I'm not decided where yet.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so now we got the boring stuff out of the way with. Tell everybody one interesting fact about yourself. And it can be anything, like one interesting random fact about Molly Kerr.
Well, at camp a few years ago, we were talking about my spirit animal, and people were trying to decide whether I was a bunny or a puppy. So we decided that I'm a buppy. And so I've just stuck with that and embraced that. So my spirit animal is a buppy.
Buppy. So that's part bunny, part puppy. So here's the question then. If you had to draw this spirit animal, what parts are the bunny and what parts are the puppy? Like, is it the size of a bunny but happens to act like a puppy, or is it the size of a puppy that like hops around like a bunny, or like?
Well, I think the idea is that sometimes I'm quiet and reserved like a bunny, and sometimes I'm like really excited and talkative and bouncing off the walls like a puppy.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
And
that makes a lot of sense. Okay, a puppy, I like that. You should go to like Build-A-Bear and have them like make you a puppy out of like one of their bunnies or one of their puppies.
maybe a puppy body with just like bunny ears.
And it like hops around like a bunny rather than walks like a puppy.
My dog can hop pretty high.
Gosh, that would be. There are some dogs that can hop crazy high, and now I'm thinking of Harry Potter and the Patronuses or whatever, and that your Patronus would be a puppy, rather than like what was like a elk, and there were some weird Patronuses back in Harry Potter. Well, I just went full Harry Potter nerd right there. So we're going to move on now. So we're in the middle of quarantine. We're in the middle of the season. Obviously, at this point, you are quarantining with your family. But if you could quarantine with one person, any person that is not your family, who would it be? And maybe where would you want to quarantine with them rather than where you are at right now?
Well, I guess Jesus doesn't count because he's my family.
It's true.
But as of people like I know, I think my friend Emma, because she's super organized and she does like bullet journaling of like her emotions and such too, and so she could help me stay sane.
Okay.
And she'd put up with me. She's been my best friend since we were born.
Okay.
And so I think that she'd be able to tolerate me the best. And I'd be sad to take her away from her family, but you got to do what you got to do.
You went with such a real answer. I came up with random celebrities of who I'd want to quarantine with, and you went with your best friend, and now I feel immature. Thank you very much for showing me up. But JH went immature too, so I feel better about that. As we went with celebrities and who we could like schmooze with during the quarantine, and you went practical and real and possible. Fantastic. So even in the midst of quarantine, obviously routines look different than they had at any point before. So far we're a month plus into quarantine. What is your routine right now? What are you doing to kind of keep a Tuesday hopefully kind of looking like a Tuesday and a Thursday kind of looking like a Thursday, rather than them just all rolling together into one giant mush pot of a day of the week?
Well, I would think that like there's different Zoom calls that just randomly pop up from my different classes and activities. Those kind of help me know the different days of the week. But mostly I follow the school schedule. And so I would get up and start English at 8:30, finish at 9:15, and then maybe get water or do jumping jacks for 5 minutes until 9:20, and when math starts. And then I do that until 10:07, and then I start economics at 10:15. But now I don't have economics because I just finished that class today because it was a dual credit class, and so now I'll have an hour and 45 minutes it free in my school schedule. So I'll probably just fill that with other school. But
So wild, so crazy.
so but I mean, sometimes if I want to start my day later because I stayed up late finishing a project, then I'll skip English and I'll start with at 9:20 with math, and then I'll just add English on to the end of the day. But I mean, the end of the day is kind of relative because I keep doing school all day, it feels like. So I'm trying to, whenever my mom offers me to go on a bike ride or a walk, to do that sort of stuff, even though I don't feel like I want to. My dad called it the other day that my computer had like a leash on me. So I was like, wait, I just have to submit this one more thing and then I'll be right out there.
Digital
So
on your computer, keeping you inside. Bike rides are good. How else are you filling your time in quarantine? So when school's over, considering we're stuck at home, there's only so much to do. Like, how else are you filling your time? What are you reading? What are you watching? How are you filling your time?
I honestly don't have that much time outside of school, but I've watched one movie.
Okay.
That was Cloud Nine. Shout out to my confirmation girls.
Cloud Nine. Okay. What is Cloud Nine?
It's a Disney Channel original movie.
Disney Channel original movie. Okay. All right.
AKA a DCOM. So DCOMs and Disney movies are my favorites.
How old is this one?
It's only like a few years old, I think. It has Dove Cameron and Luke Benward, but you probably don't know who those people are if you don't know Disney Channel.
Point.
It's a snowboarding movie.
Okay, yep. That is not what I was going to guess Cloud9 was at all. I don't know what I was going to guess, but snowboarding was not anywhere on the list. I just recently learned what the Descendants were, so I'm working my way up in the world.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And then I've watched 2 TV shows. I watched 2 episodes of The Great British Baking Show with my mom the day she had surgery.
Wait, your mom had surgery?
Yes, on her.
That doesn't need to be public. That's all fine. I just didn't. Okay, surgery during quarantine. That's what you want. All right. So the Great British Baking Show. I've seen a few episodes of the Great British Baking Show. I like anything.
I really enjoy. Yeah, and they're all really nice, and I really like cooking and baking, and so that was really fun.
Mm-hmm. You've only watched 2 episodes of it, though?
Yes.
You gotta like spend one Saturday binging something at least once during quarantine.
Maybe.
And just binge everything.
I'd like to go outside whenever I can because I spend so much time inside. So I've also been surfing 2 times when the beaches were open.
Mm-hmm.
And we went paddleboarding once, and I feel like I've been on a fair number of walks. I went on a lot of walks in the beginning, and then I've done less now because I started an online workout program so that it feels more productive and doesn't feel like I'm just walking because I don't have something to do. And I can build some muscle, be healthier, and that is nice because I always want to do that, but I just don't normally have time.
Yeah. So even with that time, you have more time in this season of quarantine. What has been your favorite part of quarantine? So not that life is fantastic or life is great, but in the change and the disruption, what has been your favorite part of quarantine?
My favorite part was spring break, when I would spend like 2 to 3 hours on our back porch, and I would just I would do my quiet time and I would just listen to God and read my Bible, because I have, when I'm doing a bunch of school, then I will do stuff like that, but I can't focus that well. And I don't have that much time to do that and really settle in and make myself, like, force myself to sit there and listen, even if I feel like I have other things that I could do. And so that was really cool, because I had a journal and I like wrote down everything that God was telling me, and I could see the difference in like my life, how I felt, and how much like I knew about, I grew as a person.
Mm-hmm. So good. Yeah, I feel like space and time leads to chances to encounter deeper things in ourselves that we may not have saw there without the ability to slow down and change our pace a little bit. So even with that, there's always the favorite parts. What outside of, the obvious, not going to school, having no senior, the final part of senior year, whatever that might look like, what has been your least favorite part of quarantine that maybe you didn't expect that you would not enjoy of quarantine?
I think that I wouldn't have expected myself to be overwhelmed with schoolwork,
Hmm.
and I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would think that the Zoom calls would be refreshing, and sometimes they really are, but sometimes when I have a Zoom call for a class that I also have a bunch of homework for, then that can feel stressful because I want to be doing the work
Yeah.
instead of chatting.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just super, when I'm trying to be super productive, that is not always the best. So I probably should focus more on those times, but I just want to get things done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What even then has been the part of quarantine, or not of quarantine, but in this season of quarantine, what have you missed the most about the world that was 6 weeks ago?
I miss seeing people like every day and being able to like ask them how they were casually and see them face to face and give them a hug if they needed it, and be able to read their body language on how they were feeling that day. And that all of that social interaction, because I really care about people and my friends, but I don't I feel like it's kind of hard to do that digitally.
Yeah. Because I feel like Ellie and I have talked a lot about the things we've taken for granted. What do you think is one of the things that 6 weeks ago, pre-corona, pre-COVID-19, that like you took for granted that you would be able to do? Like one of the things that her and I have talked about is the ability to just go to Barnes and Noble and browse a book, or be able to walk around Target for the sake of walking around Target, that just we took for granted and never even thought twice about. So what's one of the things that you think like you took super for granted that now looking back on it is like, oh wow, like that was super lucky that we get to do X, or that I got to do X, that you kind of just take for granted?
Go to the grocery store and not feel like it was a risk,
Yeah.
or like get groceries delivered and not feel like I had to wipe everything down.
Mm-hmm.
Or I feel like sometimes when I eat something in the house, then I feel like I'm taking it away from someone else because we don't have that much food.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, of like, will we still be wiping down food? Will we remember the time that we wiped down, or even getting takeout? Ellie and I have taken, and it feels like the right thing to do, where we'll order takeout, it'll get delivered, we'll take it out of the container that they brought it in, put it on a plate, then microwave the food, just to be safe that there's no
Oh,
germ or virus, that we're not touching the container that had hands. But like, will we still do that in 3 years? Will we look back on that and go, wow, we were crazy people for microwave and takeout and then not eating it in the takeout containers? Or will that just be something that 3 years from now just looks normal, because it just got ingrained into us for however long of the season that it turns into be. It's so crazy. So even like, what do you think in the world that was that you missed the least? Like, I feel like our world is changing, and obviously when quarantine lifts, we're going to go back to some sort of normal or what was normal. But hopefully we only take the good parts of normal back. What do you think is some of the, or one of the parts of quarantine that you missed the least about the life that was?
um, I do feel like while I still feel overwhelmed with school, I kind of like having it in my court in some ways and like having time to myself because I'm I think I'm an introverted extrovert, so I still like time with people, but I also need time for myself. And I was like fully booked with activities all the time. And I am more in tune with my soul right now, like my emotions, than I normally am, or I have been recently because I've been so booked with activities. And then I would always be thankful before that about any time that I could actually sit at home and do my work because I was never at home.
Yeah.
And so it's weird. I was like never at home and now I'm all at home. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't miss the not being in tune with like myself.
Mm-hmm. And I do think that is the, and even after me living on both coasts, interacting with students all over the country, one of the things I've seen just culturally is high schoolers and are busier and busier nationwide. But our specific segment of high schoolers here in Mount Pleasant, I feel like are the busiest high schoolers I have ever met in my entire life. Um, and so it is interesting to see that common theme coming up from interacting with students, just being busy and now having a chance to slow down in some form or fashion and breathe. And I don't know if the busyness is fully bad or whatever we want to call it, but it's interesting that it took a pandemic for people to slow down a bit, and realize, oh, being at home is good, or slowing down to have some space is good. And so just seeing maybe what will happen in the future, as maybe people go, okay, I can still be busy, but then how do I like build in these times of rest or these times of not having much to do? Because I do think it's good for a soul to be a little bored every now and again, or not be scheduled, or whatever you want to look at it. Um, and so actually, Molly, we are at the end of part one. So everybody, thank you for joining us of the Quarantine Diaries with Molly, part one. Tune back in at a later time and you will see part two with Molly in the not too distant future. Thank you, Molly.